Hello, and welcome to our fourth and actually our last CST video preparing us for a live conversation coming up soon. So we're going to talk about two principles at once actually in this video. We're going to talk about the common good and subsidiarity. And in the beginning, we'll do some review of the previous two principles of human dignity and solidarity. I have to say the common good is one of my favorite things to talk about because it's just something that affects all of our lives, and it really accentuates how interdependent we are, how in solidarity we are with one another around very basic issues like physical needs being met, food, water, education, the ability to congregate freely, the ability to practice our religion. In our culture, in our society together. So it's a wonderful topic. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll have some discussion questions on the very last slide for you to think about as well. So let's go ahead and begin here. Okay, so we've already gone through human dignity and solidarity, and now we're talking about the common good and subsidiarity as some central CST principles that guide us or should guide us in everything that we do as we work to make our society more just. So the idea, again, going back to human dignity briefly, is that all social, political, and economic orders must serve human dignity. The human person does not exist as some type of robot or slave for the sake of these bigger things. Rather, these things, these coming together in institutions and structures in our society are supposed to accentuate and serve the dignity of the human individual. But naturally, we don't exist just on our own. There's this other principle called solidarity. The virtue of being actively, seriously, empathetically, with empathy, being compassionate toward everyone in the human family, and realizing we're all brothers and sisters, and so we all want to support one another to equally and fully sharing in material and spiritual goods within our culture. So that's human dignity and solidarity. But then those also lead to a third principle called the common good. So the common good is defined in this Vatican II document called Gaudium et Spes that we've seen before. In that document, it's defined as the totality of social conditions allowing people to achieve their individual and communal fulfillment. Okay, so this is where the rubber really hits the road, right? What in the world are common goods? Well, Gaudium et Spes actually gives us many examples. Some of them are kind of clear, physical goods, food, clothing, housing, clean water. But then some of them are a little bit more free floating, like the right to education, to work, to have a good reputation and not have people just randomly slandering you, the right to follow your conscience, the right to vote in a democratic society, the right to have some privacy, the right to begin a family, the right to choose how you're going to live, all these rights and freedoms that are necessary for us to really flourish as human beings and to come into the fullness of the good life. Not that the good life means being rich, but the good life in the sense of having some basic goods that help us on our journey toward God, that help us live to the fullest of our potential here on earth. And I wanted to add here in this little circle, what about a safe and healthy environment? So we're trying to navigate this pandemic together. And what about air? So the virus predominantly spreads through air, right? So air is a common good. I don't own the air, you don't own the air, just like we don't really own water or the earth, any of us as private individuals or as individual human beings. These are communal goods. So a safe and healthy environment really is a matter of the common good. And that's why it's so important that we're, as a society, trying to figure out how to make a healthy environment, how to lower the risk for everyone of going out of their house. How do we create health, basically, as a common good in the environment? As we're moving on here, it's important to emphasize that common goods are both rights and responsibilities. So I can't just demand that the political, economical, legal, and cultural structures only serve me and only highlight my God-given human dignity. It's not just one-way street. It's a two-way street where I then also have a responsibility to make sure that all of these larger structures honor everyone's dignity as fully and equally as possible. So we looked at that list of all those common goods. Now, what gets in the way of equally sharing in those common goods? Well, a really clear stumbling block would be prejudice, right? Injustice, discriminating against each other on the basis of any of these factors. Because if we're discriminating against one person or toward a group, we're not sharing in a common good. We're not making goods fully common if we're discriminating. So there's many different paths for fostering the common good. The common good is often brought up in governmental discussions, talking about regulations and policies, but there's many different ways as Catholics that we can serve the common good. There's nonprofits, there's our local church community, there's just grassroots reaching out to your neighbors and organizing things within your local neighborhood. Churches, schools, there's many different ways to look out for those common goods that we listed previously. They don't necessarily only come to us through the government. That's my point here. Now, what about subsidiarity? Subsidiarity is generally thought of as a governmental principle that moves us politically, but that can also be applied in different directions too. But what does subsidiarity mean? It really just means looking first as we try to enact policies, at least giving serious consideration to the local community. When we come up with courses of action to help people, we want to go to the smallest level possible to make sure that what we're doing is going to impact those people directly. And we need to go to those small groupings of society to ask what they need and to listen to them before coming up with a huge overarching program that might not respond to people's needs as well as we would like. So here's some questions for you. Which aspects of the common good would be most beneficial for us to lift up right now during this pandemic? And another great question, how can we shift this divisive, often political rhetoric around the virus? Because that's not bringing us together as a common people for the common good of greater health and safety. So how can we shift that language? That's my question for you and for myself. All right, take care. I really look forward to seeing you on the 10th. God bless.